Welcome into episode 15 of the 2025 fantasy football season on the Belly Up Fantasy Live football show on the Belly Up Sports Network. We had real football. We had fantasy football. We had great performances and miserable performances. We had surprising performances and expected performances. And they were all predicted correctly here last week. I had to go back and check the tape on that, but I'm pretty sure every single opinion we had last week was correct. So we turned the page to week number 2. Welcome into the show. I'm Vince Stover, host of the Sports Stove Football Show. I am joined every single week by 2 experts in fantasy football, and it is Kevin Wilson on the top there. He's the senior writer at bellyupsports.com. How you doing, Kev?
We're doing great here, Vince, and I'm absolutely excited to get the show rolling here because there's a lot to talk about. I'm ready.
There's a lot to talk about. And on the bottom left there of my screen is Brian Germinaro. He's the co-host of the 3rd and 10 podcast. He's also, of course, a fantasy writer and other articles too on bellyupsports.com. Brian, how you doing, man?
I'm doing better than the Giants are. I mean, that's not saying a lot, but, I'm doing better than them.
You are one step closer to the number 1 overall draft pick next year.
And I really wish I wasn't saying that on week 2, but I guess here we are.
Here we are. We've got so much to discuss in week 1, so we're going to dive right into it. Let's get things started with the lead block. All right, now that we are into the actual season, we're going to lead off shows with studs and duds. We're going to talk about guys who overperformed or outperformed our thoughts, or just guys that were flat out awesome in fantasy football each week. We're also going to make sure we criticize some duds, guys that lost your matchups this weekend, and guys that everyone's going, what in the world happened there? So let's start with the positive notes and some studs. And Brian, I want to start with you on this one. I'm going to let you give your option. I'm really hoping that you say what I think you're going to say. Let's see what happens. Brian, who's a stud this week?
My first stud is actually Harold Fannin Jr. of the Cleveland Browns.
I like it.
7 catches on 9 targets, 63 yards, led all Cleveland Browns receivers in targets. If you're a guy that likes to streamline your tight ends, this should be the top guy your circle. I wrote about him today on an article about George Kittle replacements. This is the guy you have to go out and target, because I think this production is only going to increase as the season goes on.
Yeah, I really thought Njoku was going to start the season as the guy in Cleveland. I like Fannin a lot. We talked about him, previously and stuff like that, but I thought he was going to be more later in the season kind of guy. But my goodness, week number 1, the rookie showed up. And of all the rookie tight ends, he's not the one I had penciled as the big get here in the first week of the season. So, yeah, good call on that one. All right, Kevin, give us a stud. Who you got?
Okay, so a stud that nobody saw coming, and that's got to be Hollywood Brown of the Kansas City Chiefs. Anybody saw 16 targets, 10 catches, 99 yards? That was probably more production I thought he was going to produce in about 4 games or 5. But he put it up there, and, of course, Worthy going down. There wasn't a whole lot of other options for them to throw to, but he certainly responded, and I was not in on Hollywood Brown entering the season. And I'm going to have some things to say more about him in a little bit later today. But as far as guys that produced that came out of nowhere, he goes to the top of my list.
I like it a lot as well. Yeah, you're right. Tons of targets. Xavier Worthy going down definitely helped with that. But tons of targets, and he made the most of them as well. I'm going to stick with wide receiver as well. For me, it's Buffalo's wide receiver, Keon Coleman. It's the guy that last year we're sitting there going, he was supposed to be the guy, and he wasn't the guy. This offseason, I criticized the Bills for not doing more to acquire pass catchers, specifically at wide receiver. Keon Coleman comes out, gets 8 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown. And an amazing game, an awesome game to watch on Sunday night. And to have Keon Coleman step up that way, and we saw that tip pass in the end zone too that he dove and made a great effort play on too. It makes me so much more comfortable. I've got him in 2 leagues, and to know that I had him on the bench, of course, but to know that it's actually a possibility that's what we're going to get out of Keon Coleman this year makes me very excited. And a guy that I underestimated and was studly in week number 1, Keon Coleman of Buffalo. All right, Brian, who else you got?
We'll stick with the wide receiver trend. Emeka Mbuka. I think we all were kind of high on him. I wasn't nervous about him because I thought he'd be a good receiver. I just thought it might take a little time with the amount of mouths you have to feed in that Tampa Bay offense. But hey, 4 catches on 6 targets, 67 yards, 2 touchdowns. He seems to have, found a chemistry with Baker Mayfield that I think is going to carry off. And at the very least, be a nice red zone target and maybe a nice flex option going forward.
Definitely. Yeah, I have him in every single league I'm in. Literally, I have him on my roster, but I didn't have him in the lineup in every single league I was in. I went ahead and had him in 2, had him on the bench in 2. And obviously the leagues I played him in, I was pretty happy about. Egbuka, everything that they've said about him from day one of him stepping into that building is this guy's going to be legit. And even though there is good talent around him, he benefits from the injury situations in Tampa right now. But even so, yes, a stud, no doubt about it. All right, Kevin, who else you got?
Okay, in that same game, we're going to stay with the wide receivers, and I'm going to go with Quentin Johnston of the Chargers. And he didn't have quite the targets and all that Brown had, but he had 5 catches out of 7 targets for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. And so I know he's going to go right up to the top of people's waiver wire, and he deserves to be up there. So I did not see that kind of performance out of him or any of the wide receivers really going up against the Chiefs on a foreign soil and all that. But he certainly stepped up big time. And so he deserves to be talked about.
Yeah, I was getting ready to comment on sophomore receivers, and I realized he's not a sophomore receiver. So he's in year 3, but definitely stepping up. Marvin Harrison Jr. stepped up. Keon Coleman stepped up. These guys that they're not rookies anymore, still young. Rome Odunze had an okay game as well. So seeing those guys start to develop and find their groove is really good, I think, as well. Let's talk about Daniel Jones. We got to.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
Okay.
I thought Brian would bring him up first.
I was fasting thinking you were going to bring him up. So let's talk about him. 29.48 fantasy points in the Belly Up Fantasy League. As someone who was sitting on the waiver wire, not rostered in our league, he's currently 5% rostered. Tomorrow morning, that will be skyrocketed for sure. 272 passing yards, 1 touchdown. He ran the ball 7 times, 26 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Here's my question. They played Miami, first of all. So here's my question. He was a stud, 100%, no question about it. Is Daniel Jones going to be fantasy relevant for the majority of this season? Or was this a fluke, perfect situation, bad team going through some things in Miami, just perfect storm situation for Daniel Jones? Brian, you watched him in New York. You saw flashes of this.
Oh, there's always flashes. Yeah.
So is this just another flash, or is the change of scenery really good for Daniel Jones?
I think it's more of a flash and picking on a secondary that's kind of outside of Mika Fitzpatrick, that Dolphins secondary isn't the greatest. I mean, Storm Duck is quarterback number 2, and I only like him because his name is Storm Duck.
Storm Duck, yeah.
I mean, that's a 1-on-1 name, but I think it's a flash in the pan, per situation. His big test is coming up this week against Denver. If he could put up, I'm not going to say anywhere close to if he puts those numbers up again, he's fantasy relevant. But if he can have a decent game, he might be able to find himself as like a backup bye-week type quarterback.
Yeah, streaming option depending on your matchups. And in that division, you've got some streaming options, I think.
Oh, yeah.
If he can score 20 points this week, then yeah, against Denver, that'd be amazing, actually, if he scored 20 points. So it was interesting for sure. Kevin, you want to have any comments on Daniel Jones?
Two things can be true all at the same time, because this was certainly a flash. Because I saw this, I couldn't believe it, that he is the only quarterback that has led a team to a score on every single possession.
Yep.
That is certainly not going to occur again. I don't care who the opponent is, but I think there's some fantasy relevancy here. And so if I wouldn't be rushing, hopefully you don't have a quarterback situation where you're already looking that you have to plug somebody in. But if you did, maybe in a 2-quarterback league, okay, this guy could be fantasy relevant. And if you're in a 2-quarterback league and he's sitting there, I would drop someone to go and get him, because you always need quarterbacks in a 2-quarterback league, and this is a guy that can really help you get it done on your season.
Yeah, so I'm in a league with C.J. Stroud and Trevor Lawrence are my 2 quarterbacks.
Oh, no.
Yeesh.
So I'm on the waiver wire this week, needless to say.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Any other studs? I got a few guys we can mention, but any other studs that you guys want to discuss before we move on to duds?
There's one guy that, because we're talking tight ends, and Brian put out an article, I put out a video earlier today, and so Juwan Johnson is the guy that we need to talk about here, because this is the guy and he's only at like less than 2% rostered. So if you go on there and you're looking for a tight end and the other guys are already rostered, this is a guy I would certainly look at. Even though he's got a tough matchup with the 49ers this week, but there's some long-term potential here. And so if you – and Spencer Rattler, young quarterback, likes the tight end. So he's a guy that I like going forward. Maybe not so much this week, but I like him going forward a lot.
Yeah, he wasn't bad last year, but I'm dead wrong on him. I kind of went into this going, I'm out on the Saints as a whole.
Yeah, and I had him as a sit myself, so that's where I was.
I put out some power rankings today on socials, and the Saints were not dead last. Like
shocking.
Yes, in my opinion, very shocking. And so what they did this week, fantasy-wise, is very, very promising, because you go, okay, they could be, they have some fantasy relevance over there with more than just Alvin Kamara. So some interesting options there for sure. Guys that just stood out, I thought Aaron Rodgers, 4 touchdown passes, no picks. He didn't look like Aaron Rodgers of old, but, again, talking about QB2 on your roster or the right streaming situation, I like it. Calvin Austin also in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
One of the things about Aaron Rodgers is he throws to people he trusts. And if you earn his trust, you're going to get targets. And he looked like Calvin Austin and him were on the same page yesterday, maybe more so than any other pass catcher there. And so I really liked that. I thought Calvin Austin had a great game. And then Cedric Tillman, another Browns guy, decent year last year, and looks like he's going to have potentially a really good year again this year too, opposite of Jerry Jeudy over there in Cleveland. So, a few guys there that had really good weeks, and we'll give them their props because we didn't have those guys down as guys that were going to have really good weeks. So we'll say that. All right, let's go to duds. Who are we going to dump on this week? Kevin, I'll let you kick us off with a dud.
Okay, so I know that, Brian, you're the NFC East guy, but was there a bigger dud in the entire fantasy realm than A.J. Brown?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, because you had to spend at least a second-round draft pick to get this guy, and you got 1 target, 1 catch, 8 yards, and that's it. And the funny thing that I saw was on Facebook, there was a post going around saying A.J. Brown missing, will pay money for his safe return. And so if that's the kind of thing that you're seeing after just 1 game, then that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people saying that they're panicking. I wouldn't do that just yet with him because, he was a second-round draft pick. But this was absolutely putrid, going especially against the Cowboys, and it was just awful all the way around.
So I haven't heard anything about this, and everyone I listen to was already after they talked about the Eagles Cowboys stuff. So my thought was it was a matchup situation where they just didn't throw to him because they didn't think the matchup was, they had much better matchups out there where they didn't really have the need to throw to him. But what's crazy is it's not that he only had one catch for 8 yards. What's crazy is he only got the ball thrown to him one time.
Yeah, that blows me away. Absolutely.
And I'm a huge targets guy. Like when I'm looking at targets over catches. Even if they're getting the opportunities, that's what I want to know. AJ Brown with 1 target. Dallas Goedert had 7. Saquon had 5. Johan Dotson had 3. Devontae Smith had 3. So what it tells me is they didn't throw the ball to the receivers in that game. And I really think it was a matchup situation. I would not be shocked at all if AJ Brown has 5 catches for 88 yards and a touchdown this week. I would not be afraid of AJ Brown at all to put him back in my lineup again. I just think this was a really weird game where the Eagles, all they cared about was getting the win. And the best way to do that was to run the football. They did it 38 times comparing to throw the ball 19 times. So it's just a circumstance. Overall, they're going to be a run-heavy team anyhow, but A.J. Brown will get his. I'm not worried about that one at all. Brian, any extra thoughts on A.J. Brown before you give your dud?
No, I think, like you guys said, it's just like one of those weird week 1 anomalies. It happened every single year. I think by next week he's going to be the A.J. Brown of old.
I like it. All right, Brian, who do you have as a dud?
We'll stay with wide receiver, Tyreek Hill. Only had 40 yards on 4 catches, no touchdowns, and was still kind of a temper tantrum on the sideline. He seems checked out in Miami. Yeah. I think that Miami team's in big trouble right now.
Well, all right. So Tyreek Hill, ESPN reported this morning that he was accused of domestic violence.
Yes, I saw that. Yep.
It's also been reported that he has internally requested a trade, and that was at Pittsburgh and Kansas City, I think, were the 2 teams that have already had conversations with Miami. Tyreek Hill, I was scared of him going into the season. We've talked about it. Brian, you mentioned it before. Kevin's mentioned it too. We're scared of him going into the season anyhow. Right now, Miami, and I've got Achane, and I'm terrified. And even though it's still the running back, he's going to get his, but I'm just sitting here going, oh my goodness, Miami, they were second to last in my power rankings this morning that I dropped. Like it is bad. I'm going to talk about it on Thursday. I think McDaniels, is the first coach to get fired this season. Like,
he was on the hot seat before that first game even started, and he's in a black hole right now.
We had the report that he runs to like a preschool, or something to that extent. When something like that comes out, you're immediately on the hot seat. I mean, you have no control over the locker room.
Yeah, it's not good. My dud this week is Tank Bigsby, now of the Philadelphia Eagles, in Jacksonville. Coming into the season, we had a lot of talk. Is Etienne going to be, valid? Is the rookie going to be the guy tooting? Is he going to be a guy that's worth having? And all those kinds of things. But I still thought Bigsby was going to be, 50% of the carries in week 1 at least. And nope, not the case. He had 5 touches for 12 yards. And then he gets traded after the game, supposedly for his kick return ability, to go to Philadelphia and play special teams over there. Now, their backup running back is injured and out. A.J. Dillon's still there, but Bigsby and Dillon aren't the same player. So I hate it. Fantasy value-wise, I'm done. Oh, yeah. I'm done with Tank Bigsby. And how can you go from the year he had last year to I know it's a different coaching staff, but how do you go from that year to let's ship you off, and the team that that's getting you is thinking, hey, we're getting a kick returner and Tank Bigsby? Like, it blows my mind.
And don't forget, there were reports towards the start of camp that he was going to be the focal point of that offense. So we're going from July, he's the focal point, to not even on a team by week 2. That's a crazy turnaround.
You're right. Yeah. Jacksonville is the low-key circus of the league. Dallas gets all the attention because of Jerry Jones. But if you go and look at what Jacksonville has done the last 4 years, you go back to the Urban Meyer hire, all right? And then right? And then you go from that. And then you got Doug Peterson's there, and Super Bowl winning head coach, he's gone. right? Liam Cohen came in the middle of the night, snuck off from Tampa, didn't tell Tampa he was, back in the hunt, signed this contract, and out of nowhere, there's Liam Cohen. Like, everything that's been done in Jacksonville over the last 4 years or so has been an absolute circus.
I think,
and I'm starting.
4 years.
Yeah, true. I've always been kind of. They're gonna figure it out, right? Trevor Lawrence, he's good enough. Now they've got Thomas, and now they got Hunter, and they got all these things. They got some really good defensive players, Josh Hines Allen, and all these kinds of things. I think, okay, they're finally going to put it together. And now I'm starting to think that just maybe Jacksonville, it will never come out of it. Like, it's just the way it's going to be. They're going to have to move on from Lawrence. They're going to have to, this season, it's going to benefit them to lose games, even though they won in week 1. It's going to benefit them to lose games, and maybe they get a different quarterback in there, and they still have Lawrence as a bridge guy, whatever. I don't know. I just think I'm out on Jacksonville, and I haven't been out on Jacksonville yet, but I'm out on Jacksonville. This is just the next thing with Tank Bigsby, is the next thing in a long line of really crazy situations. So I don't know. It dud for me because I expected so much more out of him here in week number 1, and for him to be gone is crazy, absolutely crazy, I think. So, all right, any other duds you guys want to discuss?
We need to mention there's a guy on a winning football team that certainly qualifies as a dud, and that's got to be Joe Burrow. Okay,
yeah,
and he's a guy that I hyped. Sure. I drafted him last year. He led me to a championship, and so, but 113 yards. That's something he'd get in 1 quarter of play. And who thought that Cincinnati defense was what was going to bail them out in that first game or any game this year? Yeah. And so that was just awful performance from him. And he played in the preseason, because there's a lot of guys that we could put on this list that did not play, but he did play. And multiple games,
so they would get off to a hot start.
That's right. Yeah. And this is the hot start that we're talking about. Then this is not looking great. But so he's got to be mentioned as an absolute dog fantasy-wise, because people took him in the 3rd round of drafts, and this is what the kind of performance you got. You cannot be encouraged.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that one. That sounds good. Brian, any other duds you want to discuss?
We do Mason Taylor quickly. He was the tight end for the Jets that I kind of hyped up a lot in the show. I thought he'd be the second option behind Wilson. Only had 1 target and caught it for 20 yards. And it would be concerning because, hey, that's what a rookie. What's concerning is the Jets passed so much in that game and threw so much, and it didn't look Taylor's way at all. That's a little concerning of what his future is going to look like in New York, at least for this season.
I agree. I had him in I think 3 leagues, and he's the guy I'm dropping as I'm adding waiver wire ads to my teams this week. And I think he still has potential to come around eventually, but it's not worth taking up a roster spot. I don't think that performance, again, not on him.
Yeah, no.
The opportunity he got, he took full advantage of. And he looked good out there blocking too. I watched most of that game. He looked good out there, fit in just fine. So, but yeah, that Ohio State connection is very solid. And Taylor's opportunities might be very limited, especially here early on in the season. So keep an eye on him as it grows, but a dud this week, no doubt. All right, let's talk real quick about a low-scoring fantasy player from week 1 that'll have a breakout performance in week number 2, and that's this week's question for Ask the Bot, presented by RotoBot AI. RotoBot AI is an AI fantasy football platform. That's how it was built specifically for fantasy football. It equips users to make decisions faster and smarter. RotoBot AI is able to recognize each user's unique scenario and tailor roster advice based on that. Sits, starts, trades, waivers, whatever you need. And there's also that whole AI data element right on top of it as well. So download RotoBot AI, the app, and use the code BELLYUP. You're going to receive 1 free week of access to RotoBot AI. And this week we asked this question: what low-scoring fantasy player? Oh, hang on a sec, guys. You made me forget. Let's cue the music for Ask the Bot.
Now we're ready.
All right.
Yeah.
Ask the Bot. Here's the question we asked on RotoBot AI. I have it connected with my Belly Up our league with my team. You connect it specifically to your team, so it gives you advice for your team. But I asked, what low-scoring fantasy player from week 1 will have a breakout performance in week 2? RotoBot AI responded with, from week 1, several low-scoring players like Johan Dotson, Luke Schoonmaker, Jalen Tolbert, Kylan Granson, John Mechie III, and Kevontae Turpin had minimal fantasy impact but show potential for a breakout in week 2 based on their roles and usage. So they pointed out 2. Among them, Johan Dotson stands out with a big 51-yard reception, indicating deep playability, suggesting he could have a breakout if targeted more. Similarly, Kevontae Turpin, who I could not keep my eyes off of on that Thursday night game. Kevontae Turpin showed efficiency and versatility with receptions and carries, hinting at an upside if his role expands. And so that's where they give us those 2 guys, Johan Dotson, Kevontae Turpin, as guys to watch based off of what they did this week. Guys, is there anybody that you can think of had a low performance in week 1 that you expect to maybe turn it around in week number 2?
I mean, Jamar Chase had 3 points. That's not going to happen again.
Yeah, one guy that I like to mention is, so I had him as my leader in fantasy points at the running back position. That's James Conner.
Yeah.
Okay. 12 rushes, 39 yards. He did have reception for a touchdown, which saved his day just a little bit.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be a lot of competition coming from behind him. But I think going into the second game, there's every indication to me that he's going to have a great game this Sunday. So don't be surprised if you see him in a starts by me coming soon.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. That is segment 1 of the lead block. Studs and duds. Feel free to leave a comment. Your studs, your duds from week number 1 as well. Let's turn the page here and head into our second segment. We call it the Cover 2. All right, guys, I have a pretty long list of notes for this segment. Okay. So we're going to try to make this go fast. All right. So let's start off with the how long till Jackson Dart plays, because here's what I heard. You can tell me what you heard. Brian, you're basically in the building every day, right? So here's what I heard.
Not every day, but I'm there.
I heard Russell Wilson's going to start this week. Then I heard Coach Dayball's had a conversation with ownership about Jackson Dart playing. Russell Wilson
backwards. I'm thinking the ownership had a discussion with Dable about this.
Interesting. Okay. All right. I like it. So let's talk about it. Jackson Dart sitting there in the wings. Russell Wilson. It's week 1. I mean, do we give the guy more opportunity, or do we say, no, we've seen enough? Brian, the resident Giant fan, what are your thoughts on this whole situation?
Listen, did Russell Wilson have a good game on Sunday? No, but no quarterback was going to have a good game behind that offensive line. That offensive line was putrid. It was terrible. Russell Wilson had absolutely no time to throw in that game, running for his life all game. You throw a young quarterback like Jackson Dart or any young quarterback behind there, they're going to get their head ripped off. They're going to break any confidence they had. So I don't want to start Jackson Dart right now, but I will say it does feel like, I was a guy that said like Jackson Dart's not going to be into like December. I'm going to move to before Halloween, we will see Jackson Dart play, or at least start in a Giants football game.
I was going to say, do you think that maybe we see, Russ get the first half, or Russ get the first 3-4 drives even in this week? And if it doesn't go, positively, doesn't mean it has to go perfect, but if it doesn't go positively, maybe we go ahead and sprinkle them in. Maybe there's even part of the game plan already for let's get Jackson Dart a few snaps this week.
There was a report Sunday morning that the Giants had a set group of plays for Jackson Dart to come in week 1. And I don't know if it was just the way the game was going, if it was just falling behind, seeing how the offensive line played, that they decided to pull a plug on it. But yeah, no, there was reports that Dart was going to at least see a couple plays on Sunday. It just never happened. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see him in Dallas on Sunday, at least for one play.
Sure. Kevin, you saw the Russell Wilson experience when it was in its prime. You were there when Matt Flynn signed the contract, and he was going to get his opportunity to be a starter in the league. And Russ got drafted in the 3rd round, took the job, and won a Super Bowl, went to a couple. So when you look at Russell Wilson and you look at where he's come to, Denver was horrendous, right? Last year was not great. this year, it kind of looks like we're carrying over from Pittsburgh right now. What are your thoughts on Russell Wilson's life left as an NFL starting quarterback?
Okay, so the thing that's going to determine this to me is the Giants' schedule, because they've got the Cowboys this week. If Russell Wilson doesn't break it out a little bit, then they're going to have to consider. But the problem is for the next week they've got the Kansas City Chiefs at home on Sunday night. Then after that they've got the Chargers. Mm-hmm. Those are not two teams you want a rookie quarterback going up against. So I'm saying the week after that at New Orleans is the week that you want to slot this guy in if that's what you're going to do. Don't get the dude killed in his first, action, because, these are two solid, Dallas is not a solid defense, after what we saw this past week. But after that, the Chiefs, you don't want to do that. The Chargers, you do not want to do that, to me.
We're going to see how much pool NBC has, because Jackson Dart starting that game on prime time is much more of a seller than Russell Wilson starting.
Who decided that game to be Sunday night? I would love to meet. Be like, what were you thinking?
Yeah,
I bet I could find 5 games better on the week 3 slate that are better than whatever's going to happen in that Giants-Chiefs game.
Yep, for sure. For
yeah,
sure.
After seeing Baltimore and Buffalo, that's what you get on a Sunday night game.
Yeah.
America will have this game off by halftime. I'll mark it right now.
All right. I'm going to run through several quick hitters, okay? Stop me if you find something interesting. We already talked about A.J. Brown's 1 target. We already talked about Hollywood Brown's 16 targets. Chargers, super even distribution at the wide receiver. Quentin Johnson, 7 targets. Ladd McConkey, 9. Keenan Allen, 10. Let's quick shout out, Kevin.
More to come on this when we get into section 3. I'm just
okay. All right, cool. We'll wait on that then, because we talked about Keenan Allen as a sit this past week. It was
I was a little wrong on that one, just a little wrong.
Yeah, one of the few that we got wrong. Okay. New Orleans, 46 pass attempts. New England, 46 pass attempts. 2 teams that need to run the football are throwing the football a whole lot.
And you saw what happened. Neither of those teams won, so maybe there's a connection there.
And tell me, why is it that they lost by a possession? So why are they throwing the football? Like, if you're down by 3 scores, it makes sense. But they lost by a possession. Why are they throwing the football so much?
Especially New Orleans, you got Kamara back there.
Yeah.
I can kind of understand it when you've got Ramondre Stevenson.
Right.
A little more, but that's a baffler to me.
But Brian, we talked about Drake May and the steps he can make this season. Throwing the football 46 times not going to help Drake May develop.
Not at all. If anything, it's going to do the opposite. It's going to break his confidence, because you're going to see the stat lines. It's like, well, your completion percentage is 54. It's like, well, yeah, I completed 23 passes, 46 were incomplete. So It's crazy.
Arizona, Trey Benson, 8 touches. James Conner, 12 touches. Kevin, you mentioned James Conner earlier last week. Brian, you brought up Trey Benson as a handcuff option, and to see that evenly split is intriguing to me in week 1 of the season, especially. I'm a little surprised to see it that close. New England, back to New England. Let's see. You're carrying the ball. Travion Henderson, 5 touches, 27 yards. Ramondre Stevenson, 7 touches, 15 yards.
That'll switch by this weekend.
Can we please give Travion Henderson 15 touches versus 5?
It's coming. It's coming.
All right. Pittsburgh, Gainwell, 7 touches for 19 yards. He was also targeted 4 times in the pass game, 3 catches for 4 yards. He didn't do much with his opportunity. I was surprised by how much opportunity he had, though. Is Pittsburgh going to keep Kenneth Gainwell as a major part of their offensive game plan, or are we going to see that transition over time? Caleb Johnson returned kicks, but he only got a couple touches out of the backfield.
I feel like it has to switch to Caleb Johnson. He's the future of that running back position. I think Gainwell is kind of like that placeholder guy until they're fully confident in Johnson to give him the reins.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I had Caleb Johnson as one of my guys to keep your eyes on. I liked his situation. I thought he'd be the RB1, and in Pittsburgh, he should be, and that's going to switch, I believe, as well. And maybe the Seahawks will be the tonic for that scenario there.
Here's all things.
Hopefully not, but so we'll see.
New York Football Jets. We talked about Mason Taylor already, but let's talk about running backs. Breece Hall, 19 touches, 107 yards. Allen got the touchdown, six touches, 9 yards, and 1 touchdown. But to me, as someone who has Breece Hall in one league, this was very encouraging to see how they're using Breece Hall. And for the record, Justin Fields, I thought, played a really good game as well. Mm-hmm. So thoughts on the Jets, Breece Hall, and I guess Justin Fields too.
Well, I guess I should, because I've been questioning Justin Fields practically this entire preseason, but he played well, and that shows the kind of offense they can have, and I think that's going to continue. And just for the record, it wasn't because I was down on Justin Fields. It was just where he was being projected to finish. He could do that after that one performance, but so we'll see. Teams adjust, and we'll see what he can do when the next team that he plays. How do they play him in this next game?
Brian, who had the better day? Dan Campbell.
Oh, no.
All right. Aaron Glenn with the Jets or Ben Johnson with the Bears. All three of them lost in different fashions and different forms. Which one of them had the better day?
I'm going to say Aaron Glenn because I feel like it's such a moment for the Jets with Aaron Rodgers back. That has such a recipe for disaster, disappointment, to be embarrassed, blown out. And while they still lost the game, they were competitive. They were in that game until the last minute. I thought Aaron Glenn did really good with a lesser roster. I like where he's going for. Whereas, Dan Campbell struggled and Ben Johnson kind of choked his first win away. So
absolutely.
That's kind of concerning.
If you'd asked that question earlier in the third quarter, it was Ben Johnson.
Yes, 100%.
Chicago was riding high, 17-6. They had the ball in Minnesota territory. They could have scored the killer shot right there, and they got shut down the rest of the way. So that was not a good look at all, especially at home.
That's it. So they gave up 21. That's on Dennis Allen. I don't like passing that blame on to Ben Johnson. That's Dennis Allen's fault. But
true.
The offense for Chicago only scored 13 points. And they had the pick six, which was helpful.
You made your snap, crackle, and pop because you're an offensive guru, and that's what comes out. That's not good.
No.
Yeah. We'll talk about the Bears.
Half. Like after the third quarter was okay, but once that fourth quarter came around, that entire Bears team just shut down.
Yes. Oh, and as a Packer fan, it was so sad to see.
Oh, I'm sure you hate every minute of it.
Yeah, I'm sure that you were just beside yourself with worries.
All right, Jacksonville, ETN had 16 carries.
Very encouraging.
5.
Very encouraging.
Tootin had 3. Brian Thomas, 7 targets. Hunter, 8 targets. I think that's gonna carry over. I think that's kind of what we're gonna see the workload. Obviously, Bigsby's gone, but generally speaking, I think that's what your workload looks like in Jacksonville. But boy, they got to be a lot better than they were. Especially Brian Thomas. He had 7 targets. He didn't have 7 catches. So that's got to get cleaned up pretty quick too. We could have mentioned him as a dud, I think too. Cleveland, Dylan Sampson. My goodness, Dylan Sampson. Listen, we all liked him. We talked about him, but I don't think any of us thought this was going to happen in week 1 for him. And it was the passing game. Ultimately, 8 catches, 64 yards. He had 12 carries for 29 yards. So 20 touches on the day for Dylan Sampson. They give their other rookie, Fannin, 9 targets to go with it as well, compared to Njoku's 6 targets. But Cleveland stayed in that game the whole way. It looked like a Cleveland Browns game. The final score was a Cleveland Browns score. But I was so impressed with Dylan Sampson. And this Quinshon Judkins thing is going to be really interesting with him starting to practice now. So I want to ask the Dylan Sampson question. Like, are we confident that he can be a season-long fantasy impact player for us, or are we still a little bit too afraid for what Quinshon Judkins will be when he shows up?
I'm a little afraid, especially it all depends on when the Browns decide to move on from Ford, because there's the rumors that they don't like Jeremiah Ford. They want to move on from him. That's why we're always so high on Judkins to begin with. Sampson could kind of, if he continues to have a decent role and be that receiving back, he could kind of take over that RB2 role and be like that, move forward down to that change pace back. So it all depends on that from the Cleveland Browns standpoint for me.
The question for me is what was the defense that he did this against? And that's Cincinnati, and they looked a whole lot, as we mentioned earlier, a whole lot better. And but still, it's the Bengals. And if he Ford, you know what the acronym Ford is, found on Road Dead, and that might be what happens here with him.
Never heard that.
And especially, Sampson's got the opportunity here where he can establish himself as the guy.
Yeah.
And if he does do that, then I don't care what Judkins does. He can get involved, and he will be involved. But it's Sampson's show right now. So game 2, can he keep that rolling? We'll have to see. But you have to be encouraged by that was like, Sampson, who in the world is this guy? And he showed out. And so game 2, bring it, and then we'll see.
All right. Let me I need to talk about 3 more running back situations, and then we'll move on. Atlanta, Bijan Robinson, 12 carries for 24 yards. He had a great day in the air, 6 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. But only 12 carries for 24 yards. Algiers had 10 carries for 24 yards.
That's got to change.
We talked about him as a handcuff. He's a legit option there, but are they really going to go 50-50 split on carries between Bijan Robinson and Algiers? That doesn't make any sense to me, Kevin.
That makes no sense to me either. And it's Robinson. Come on. He's got ability. We've seen it. And they need to get him going. And especially if he can catch the ball like he did in that game and then run it as well, then you've got a multifaceted back there. And so I cannot for the life of me see a 12-10 ratio going forward, because Bijan Robinson needs to be, the mustard on your sandwich, to say, and they've got to get this rolling because the season could get away from them in a hurry. So I think they need to get this guy on the ground and going.
They had Tampa on the ropes. Legit had Tampa on the ropes. I'm very positive on Atlanta moving forward, but I think it would really help them if they found ways to get more carries for Bijan Robinson. And I like how you did that, Kevin, the Bijan mustard of your sandwich.
There we go.
I like it.
I just came up with that. It wasn't like I was practicing that before the mirror before the show.
I believe that. I just figured you had a thing of mustard sitting right in front of you.
I'm not a mustard guy that's going to put that out there. And so there it is.
All right. Denver is the other one. J.K. Dobbins, he got 16 carries, 63 yards, and a touchdown. The rookie R.J. Harvey, only 6 touches in this game, Brian. I did not see that one coming either. What are your thoughts on the Denver running back situation?
No, me neither. That was a little concerning, but I think it's one of those things. It's the rookie, break him into the new system. I think slowly over time, more and more trust will go to R.J. Harvey. You don't sign Dobbins right before the season start to not use him whatsoever. So I think it's a kind of a welcome to the league, holding with the training wheels on. Got to take the training wheels off of R.J. Harvey.
Okay. All right, Kevin, back to you for Seattle. You were all over this one with Charbonnet. Charbonnet gets 12 carries, 47 yards, and a touchdown. Kenneth Walker only 10 carries. So same split as the Atlanta offense, but this one we don't think is quite as crazy. And you were all over this one.
I expected that they would both get carries, and I was hoping, because remember, Kenneth Walker was one of those guys that did not play in the preseason at all. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about him coming up in section 3. But I think that if you picked up Kenneth Walker, don't panic. And even though they're still they might be 50-50, but I think Kenneth Walker is going to do more with his carries and the touches he has going forward. And this is the game right here that's going to show that, whether it happens or not. If it doesn't happen, then I'm going to have to completely revise my thoughts on this. But I think Pittsburgh's going to show a Kenneth Walker breakout.
Very nice. All right, couple just quick things we don't have to comment on, but worth pointing out because we're a fantasy show. In Los Angeles, the Rams, 19 of their 28 targets went to Puka and Devontae Adams. So if
That's
you
a
have
surprise.
another pass catcher, I wouldn't play them in Los Angeles. Zay Flowers, 7 catches, 143 yards and a touchdown. Shout out there. Phenomenal showing from him as well. And then the Packers, we talked about how are they going to split up their passes. Dobbs, 4 catches, Reed, 5, and Tucker Kraft, 4. So I still am a little afraid overall of Packer pass catchers at the moment, but that's how it broke down in week 1. Matthew Golden, I think only 2 catches in that game. And so keep an eye out for who emerges kind of in that hierarchy of pass catchers in Green Bay as well. All right, that's covered too. That one went really long, guys. All right, let's go into the next segment. We call it the read option. All right, for the read option, what we do here, this is our weekly sits and starts segment, and I did not have my notes pulled up, which is awesome for me. All right, our sits and starts segment, and we're going to do this every single week for you. Last week, for what it's worth, the starts amongst the 3 of us averaged almost 15 points. The sits amongst all 3 of us averaged about 10 points. So we did outweigh it there at the very least as well. So be ready and aware of that. Okay, and now not only did I not have my notes pulled up, I can't even find my notes. Okay, here we go. Did I find them? I think I found them. Okay, I did. Whew, that was a close one. All right, guys. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to run through these divisions and give our starts and sits by division. We are going to start with the one and only Brian Germinaro at the NFC East.
So my first start is CeeDee Lamb. I know he had a rough game in Philly, but worked after practice, was the only guy on Friday, and the Giants secondary allowed 6.4 yards per passing. So I expect Lamb to have a big bounce back game. Speaking of bounce back game, I have A.J. Brown. I know he wasn't visible, but the Chiefs defense, that secondary, let 50 yards to 4 different receivers. I think A.J. Brown can bounce back in a big way. And similarly, I'm staying with Philly's offense. Give me Jahan Dotson. Had that big play for the 50 yards. I think he led all Philly receivers in receiving yards. Has that connection, that big play opportunity. I think Hurts looks for him against the Chiefs again. Give me Dotson. For my sit, Jahan Krosky-Merritt, also known as Little Bill. The Packers run defense held the Lions to 46 rushing yards, was pretty good. And I know Krosky-Merritt had a good stat line. A little misleading. Half those rushing yards came on 1 rush. So a little bit concerning, but I don't like that matchup against Green Bay. And finally, Tyrone Tracy didn't look great against Washington, and that Giants offensive line is so bad. He'll have no holes. I'm staying away from the Giants running backs entirely. So it's CeeDee Lamb, Brown, Dotson to start, Krosky-Merritt, and Tracy to sit.
Perfect. All right, let's go to the NFC South. Kevin Wilson.
Okay, so the South. NFC South starts. You have to go. We mentioned him, Emeka Egbuka. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about him a moment ago. Texas allowed 245 yards passing. So he's a start for me. Then I'm going to go to his opponent. Chuba Hubbard. Okay. I'm going to go with him. 16 rushes, 57 yards. Kamara, 4 yards per carry. And then last is Tet. I went with him last week. I'm going to stay with him. He had 5 and 9, 65 yards more, and a Duze's 9 catches, 105 yards combined, a touchdown. So those are the starts. Over on the sits, I'm going to sit Bryce Young until he proves that he can actually, produce fantasy relevancy. Juwan Johnson, I just talked about him as picking him up. You want to do that, but San Francisco is a tough matchup, so you're going to want to sit him if you can. And then last is, I'm going to keep hammering on this, Spencer Rattler, quarterback. You don't want him on your fantasy roster anywhere, anytime, so keep him far away from your roster.
All right, that's the NFC South. Let's head into the NFC North. I'm starting Jared Goff this week. I think the Lions have a bounce back week. Much easier opportunity this week, of course, as well. I think Goff looks a lot more like 2024 Jared Goff than he does week 1 Jared Goff of this season. So give me Jared Goff and Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs got stuffed by the Green Bay Packer defense. They decided to sell out against him. He still had some opportunities and some things. He obviously still active in the pass game as well. So I love Jahmyr Gibbs this week for a massive, massive week. And then I'll stick with running back and go Josh Jacobs for Green Bay. He ended up with an okay score at the end of the day because he got the touchdown, but Detroit did a really good job stopping him as well. I think Washington is going to be focused mainly on the pass this week, whereas Detroit came in focused on the run. I think there's enough respect for Jordan Love this week that you're going to see Washington focus on that aspect, which is going to open the door for Josh Jacobs on the ground. I'm sitting Aaron Jones this week from Minnesota. Again, he got that passing touchdown, which boosted his numbers as well. Overall, I liked Mason a whole lot better than Aaron Jones in that game. So I'm sitting Aaron Jones this week and sticking with running backs, DeAndre Swift in Chicago. People are not going to be afraid of Caleb Williams hitting wide open receivers, so they're going to sell out to stop the run this week against DeAndre Swift, who looked a little bit of his age this week as well, even though he's not super old. But I'm sitting Aaron Jones and DeAndre Swift. I am playing Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Josh Jacobs this week in the NFC North. All right, let's go to the NFC West, and Kevin Wilson is back up.
Okay, so I mentioned him just a moment ago. Kenneth Walker, he was awful against the 49ers, but I am going to start him in this game. Breece Hall, 19 carries, 107 yards, 5.6 yards per carry. So that's a go for me. You're going to go with CMC. I know that's real easy, but Arizona gave up 146 yards, or they gained 146 yards and 5.4 yards per carry. So that's a go. Then Trey Benson or I mentioned Connor earlier. Doesn't matter which one you have. Get him, them, whoever you've got into your lineup. So that's a go. Carolina, 200 yards of rushing allowed. So that's a setup for me. Sits. I'm going to sit all Seattle tight ends just like I did a week ago. 2 catches. The Pittsburgh allowed 3 catches to New York Jet tight end, so that's no good. And so, okay, Juwan Jennings for the 49ers, I'm going to sit him. Other than, let's see, New Orleans, other than Hamilton, see, I can't even read my notes here. All right, so it was bad. Okay, so I'm going to sit him. And Tyler Higbee, no catches, 0.
Yeah.
As a tight end, you can look to gain up tight ends, but that is absolutely a no-go. So keep him far away from your starting lineup, whatever you do.
All right, let's go to the AFC East, and we're back to Brian Germinaro.
All right, so first stardom, Drake May had an okay week 1, 287 passing yards, touchdown interception, but he's going up against a Miami secondary that just made Daniel Jones look like an all-pro quarterback. I start Drake May. I think he's in for a big week. Number 2 is Breece Hall. I had him as a sit last week. I was wrong. He's a start for me this week. He reestablished himself as that bell cow back, and the Bills' defense allowed 238 rushing yards to the Ravens. I think is a big game. And finally, it's Keon Coleman. Finally had that breakout performance we were all waiting for last year. The Jets struggled to contain Metcalf and Calvin Austin last week. I think Coleman's in for another big game. My sits all come from Miami. My first one, Tua Tagovailoa. Looked terrible in his first game. I don't have much confidence in him throughout the season. And my second one is Devon Achane. The Patriots defense kept Ashton Genty contained all game, and they only allowed 56 total rushing yards. Achane wasn't really that impressive to begin with. I think he struggles behind that Patriots defensive line.
All right, there you go. AFC East. Let's head to the AFC North now. Let's start Chase Brown again. Last week, he gave us 14 points, fantasy points. And the Jaguars gave up 4.5 yards per carry this past week. You know the Bengals are going to be trying to get T. Higgins and Jamar Chase going, but you also know the Jaguars are going to know that. And so I love Chase Brown again this week. I do think the receivers look better, but I still like Chase Brown this week. I like Mark Andrews this week, tight end. He's going up against Cleveland. The Ravens last week, it was all Zay Flowers through the air. It was all Derrick Henry on the ground. But we're going to see a touchdown at least from Mark Andrews this week. If not, another 4 catches to go along with it too. So I like Mark Andrews this week in Baltimore. And I'll stick with tight end Jonnu Smith in Pittsburgh. That role is going to continue to grow. And I think Rodgers and him, again, are clicking. He's obviously fits in that offense with Arthur Smith. And so I like Jonnu Smith again this week. Last week, Smith, I had him as a sit, and he actually performed. If he didn't get the touchdown, it would have been a whole different story, but he did. And he'll get another touchdown again this week. 4 sits this week. I'm going to sit T. Higgins. And I know that sounds really blasphemous, being where you draft him at. And so I guess it depends on your roster always. But I think T. Higgins, I think Jamar Chase is going to be the primary focal point for Joe Burrow this week. And I think T. Higgins will take a bump as a result of that in the wrong direction. And then I'm going to sit on the that side of things. Dylan Sampson, we talked about him earlier. I think that the Ravens defense is going to be completely different than the Bengals defense. And again, what else do they have? You saw that flash in week 1. Baltimore's not going to let you do it in week 2. So I'm sitting Dylan Sampson this week, and then I'm considering him for week 3 based on what he does this week. That's the AFC North. Let's go back to Brian now for the AFC South.
So my first one, give me Brenton Strange, the Jaguars tight end. The Bengals defense give a big game to Harold Fannin Jr. He also led all Jaguars receivers in receiving yards for week 1. I think that repeats for week 2. Staying with tight ends, Dalton Schultz of the Houston Texans targeted 5 times during week 1, and the Buccaneers defense allowed tight ends to have 8.4 yards per reception. I think Schultz gets back on the right track. And staying with the Texans, C.J. Stroud. I know things are a little bit of mixed results for Stroud. Saw some good, saw some bad. But this Falcons defense just allowed almost 300 yards to Michael Penix. I think we're going to see more good than bad from Stroud this week. And my sit-ums, I have Michael Pittman Jr. He had a good week against, the Dolphins offense, but he's going against that Broncos defense. We all know how good that secondary is. I'm staying away. And similar, Tony Pollard, below average game in week 1. And against that Rams rush defense, I'm just going to stay away entirely. Only 82 yards allowed to non-quarterbacks.
I like it. All right, AFC West. What you got, Kevin?
Okay, so any Chargers receiver that you happen to have on your roster, they're all a go, whether it's Lad McConkey or Allen or Johnston, doesn't matter. Las Vegas allowed 287 yards passing, so that's a go. In that same game, Geno Smith, 24-34, 362 yards. The Chargers gave up 258 yards passing, so that's a go. And we talked about him a moment ago, R.J. Harvey. I'm firing him up. Miami had a lot of problems. Achane was not that because he almost averaged 8 yards per carry. So I'm going to start him. Sits. Sorry, Hollywood Brown, you will not catch 10 passes this week against the Philadelphia Eagles. And because other than Lamb, they gave up 78 yards passing to the other Dallas receivers. So that's a no-go for me. And then Isaiah Pacheco, his teammate, disappeared. He's going to have to reappear before I trust him. And last but not least, Denver tight ends. Ingram goes down. We don't know. He probably won't play this week. And so that's a no-go. I'm not starting any of those guys at any time until he gets back into the fold. So don't do it to yourself. Keep all Denver tight ends far from your roster.
I like it very much. There you go. That's the start sits for this week. Again, last week, the advice was warranted, outscoring by almost 5 points per player there. So make sure you check that out and make the necessary additions to your team this week. All right. Speaking of additions to your team, let's get into our segment called the Red Zone. All right, we did start sits. Now let's do waiver wire additions. Who we putting our money on to be the right ad this week? And I'm curious to see where we go with this one, guys. So, Brian, let's start with you for your favorite ad this week.
My favorite ad this week is Harold Fannin Jr. I talked about it a lot in this show, but with tight end being such a weak position, anytime you see that guy have that big game, your eyes already go towards him. I would pick him up, stash him on your bench. Even if you streamline them, you should pick him up. Even if you have a guy like, Bowers or McBride, you still try to pick Fanny up because he could be a trade value later on. A team goes out with tight end. They need a tight end. They look for you, and you get something good out of it. So that's why I'm rushing the waiver wire to add this player.
Kevin, who do you have as your favorite ad this week?
Okay, so I'm going to go with, other than some of the obvious ones, is Kayshawn Booty. Okay. 0.5% rostered at present, 6 catches, 103 yards. And so if you need wide receiver help, he goes to the top of my list.
I like it. All right, Brian, you got another ad for us this week?
Yeah, it's Calvin Austin III. Like you're saying earlier, he had a big week this week with the Jets. Something just seemed to click with him and Rodgers. It seemed like every single time he's throwing the ball that way, I think he's going to be perfect wide receiver depth for you, maybe even a fill-in option in a flex position during a bye week.
Love it. Kevin Wilson, another waiver ad from you.
Okay, so if you're not too excited about my last one, you got to be excited about Quentin Johnson. We've talked about him multiple times already. 8% rostered, and he did everything this past week. So if 2 touchdowns, so as a wide receiver, he's a guy that you could certainly look into and would be available. So if you're looking for a wide receiver, don't like my last one, this guy, go and get him.
I want to come back to tight end because Brock Bowers injured, questionable. Evan Ingram, questionable. Kittle is out. And I feel like there's some sexy names out there for sure that people are going to. Juwan Johnson's going to be a big ad this week for a lot of people. But may I just throw this one out there because I feel like I need to, is Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts this week, 8 targets, 7 catches, 59 yards. I'm telling you what, Atlanta, the way they look this week, they're right there on the verge of making that next step forward. And if Kyle Pitts is going to get 8 targets, I love him, especially as tight end 2 on my roster. And with guys going down, injuries happening, Mason Taylor not being what we hoped he would be, I look at it and I go, why not Kyle Pitts at this point? And that offense, if he's going to get the opportunities, and call me crazy, I'm taking a shot. I'm adding Kyle Pitts this week if he's available in my league.
Okay, I wouldn't think that he'd be a whole lot of available, so that's why I didn't bring him up.
65% rostered right now.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So he's not going to be available. So if you need a tight end, go with Bretton Strange. From my video earlier today, I was in on him, if you remember, and I'm still in on him. But he's at 22.2% rostered, so he may not be available as much either. But if he is, go get him.
Noah Fant, he's 0.7% rostered in Cincinnati. 5 targets, 4 catches, 1 touchdown. There are some tight ends available for sure. But nonetheless, you got some options there. Brendan Strange, I've got him rostered. You've got him rostered in our league, Kevin. I've got him rostered in 2 other leagues. I love Brendan Strange. Brian, you talked about him in your starts this week too. So if he's available, yes, I'd go Brendan Strange as well. I love that option down there in Jacksonville. All right. Any other ads, Brian, that you want to bring up?
None I can think of. I mean, if you're really desperate for a tight end, Jonnu Smith would be a good look at. I think he's only rostered in like 10% of leagues. When he's in Arthur Smith's offense, he's going to get used. So
yeah. All right, Kevin. Anybody else you want to mention?
Well, because Brian, because I had Calvin Austin written down as well, and so he's the guy. He 6 targets, 1 behind DK. Mm-hmm. That's a scenario that's going to continue going forward. Maybe even revert itself because I'm still not that big on DK, and he should be doing more than this. But Calvin Austin's the guy I really like going for in that Pittsburgh offense.
For sure. All right, let's go into a brand new segment we started last week. It is Beat the Bot. All right, we talked about asking the bot some questions, and it's been helpful to us. Now we got to beat the bot. A reminder, this is presented by RotoBot AI, and RotoBot is an AI fantasy football platform that equips users to make decisions faster and smarter. RotoBot AI is able to recognize each user's unique scenario and tailor roster advice based on that, sit starts, trades, and waivers on top of all the other great tools that AI can give you. Download RotoBot AI and use the code BELLYUP to receive 1 free week of access to RotoBot AI. Last week, we asked for the highest scoring running back in the week. RotoBot beat us all, guys. Bijan Robinson was second. He was not the highest, but he was second. And me and Brian picked Saquon Barkley. He was seventh. Kevin went with James Conner at 15th.
Yeah, we don't need to
so
discuss
it doesn't
that
matter
any
how
further.
bad you lose. You all lose equally. So RotoBot is 1-0 against us. And so this week, our competition is this. The highest scoring tight end in week number 2 will be. And RotoBot says it's Trey McBride at 15.2 is who RotoBot is going with this week. I am going with Hunter Henry at 14.6 this week. I like the matchup there. And it's, I didn't want to go for the most obvious choices. So I'm going to take a swing with Hunter Henry this week, guys. Kevin, who do you have as the highest scoring tight end this week?
Well, I'm going to agree with our, bot because
Okay.
Trey McBride is the guy that I'm going with at 15.5 fantasy points.
Okay.
And he's a great tight end, of course. I like his matchup going up against Carolina at home. So I like this a lot. So I take the safe high road, and I'm just going to go with McBride here.
All right, Brian Germinaro, who's your pick?
I'm going with Dalton Kincaid, 12.8 points last week. I think he's going to get like 13.8 this week. I think it's a big week against the Jets this week.
I like it. I like it a lot. So there we go. RotoBot and Kevin Wilson go with Trey McBride in the 15s. RotoBot's 15.2. Kevin 15.5. I've got Hunter Henry at 14.6, and Brian goes with Kincaid at 13.8. Guys, I want to close kind of our content with this mindset. Your favorite game from the weekend. First of all, it was a phenomenal weekend of football, college and pro. But the NFL games that we saw, as a Packer fan, I loved the Packer-Lion game. Sunday night's game was crazy. And honestly, Monday night's game was close the whole way. They had the comeback from the Vikings and all this kind of stuff too. I thought we had some really good football going back to Thursday with Dallas and Philadelphia, all that kind of stuff. So give me your favorite game of the weekend and why, Brian.
It's a tough one, but I think I'm going to go with the Steelers-Jets game. It was just, It had everything. It had drama, the storylines. It was just an all-around very entertaining football game. Rodgers going back and getting the last laugh against the Jets. It's just perfect all around.
That is probably my pick too. Kevin, who was your favorite game of the weekend?
Well, I was hoping I would be talking about the Seahawks 49ers, but I'm already not looking forward to having to discuss that game on the Seahawks Session show coming up on Friday. But I agree with you guys that the everything in that Pittsburgh Jets game, I thought that Aaron Rodgers would go in there and kind of stumble a little bit, but he went in there and just blew their living doors off. And just if you've got him, just don't expect that's going to be happening every single week.
No.
Might happen this week, and hoping not. But I'm going to be with my eyes a little bit more open when it comes to that game coming up. But the Steelers Jets, you had to like that, and so it wasn't a great sports weekend for the Wilson household. Let me just say that. Okay, but
I don't know. I mean, your Clemson Tigers made it interesting, going down 16.
That's not what we want to discuss. Interesting, okay? When you're playing the Troy Trojans.
Yeah, hey,
yeah,
Troy Trojans are good, man.
So let me ask you this: Troy is located where?
Alabama.
Okay, I'm just checking to see, because they've had some good teams in the past. But if you go into Clemson and you're leading 16-0, that's extraordinarily bad.
It was wild. Bills Ravens, by the way, I'd say it again. Phenomenal ending.
Yeah.
What Josh Allen did in that game was crazy. What Derrick Henry was doing was crazy. I mean,
that's right. And who could have thought that game would turn on a Derrick Henry fumble?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, and that's when I decided to stay up for the rest of the game. I was kind of teetering on going to bed, and the fumble happened. I said, "All right, I'm here. I'm here. Don't worry, I'm here." So there you go. All right, Brian Germinaro, tell the fine folks about what you got going on this week. I know you got some articles. You had one drop today, I'm sure. I think you have another one coming out earlier here in the next day or two as well.
Yeah, next day or two, it's going to be starts and sits for the Thursday night game. I mean, you already got a preview of one. I might have spoiled one in the thing. Y'all have to go read it and check. As always, you can find my articles at BrianPeach1016 on Twitter. They're all there. 3rd and 10, we had a new episode drop this morning, breaking down the Giants-Commanders game. Nate was depressed. I was upset. It makes for great content. And then on Thursday, like always, will be, the definition of insanity, seeing the same thing over and over again, and we will be hyping ourselves up for our eventual loss to the Dallas Cowboys.
I don't want to take away from your show, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. But did you guys talk about the pass blocking from Cam Scatterbo?
No, we did not. We talked about Cam Scatterbo running into his own guy. That's where more of the ire went.
Too pessimistic in that situation. Get some good stuff from Cam Scatterbo. All right, Kevin Wilson, what do you got going on this week?
Well, as you're well aware, we did our fantasy baseball show yesterday, and it's coming down to it. Yeah. The fantasy playoffs, the first round or the second round, as the case may be, is coming to a close. You want to check that show out before it gets too late for you to do anything with your fantasy roster. And as I mentioned, put out a who you're going to replace Mr. Kittles with, a video short. So you don't have to spend a lot of time watching it, but you're going to want to check that out because waivers, if you'll remember, are tonight.
Yep.
So get your waiver claims in. And then on Friday, as I mentioned, the Seahawks Sessions show. And so I'm still trying to think of something positive I'm going to say on that. Hopefully I'll come up with something. And then Sunday, you and I will be back with the recap, what's going on with the fantasy baseball world, as well as the real baseball, because we're talking about football. We could talk about till our lungs bleed, but don't forget baseball. I'm excited, and I know you're excited about what's going on in the baseball world. So check that show out on Sunday. And, of course, over there on Twitter, Kevin62, WILSEA. I have people that ask me my advice. I appreciate them all. So there it is.
All right, Kevin Wilson there for you. Tomorrow night, let's see. So if you're listening to this live, then you got all the advice you need for tomorrow. If you're listening to this when you wake up Wednesday or sometime during the day Wednesday, you better get on it because waivers have already cleared. You got to go find out what you're doing, all right? So make sure you jump on top of that. Tune in live. We're always live on the Belly Up socials, and then it goes up on the Belly Up YouTube channel after the show goes live, and always available podcast form, Belly Up Fantasy Live Football Show as well. This week, I've got Thursday night, an episode with my dad. It's basically a Packer pregame show for Thursday night. I'm sure we'll talk plenty of Packers, but we spread it around. We talk about everything else too. We're covering college football. We've got our picks for college football. This week, we're picking Georgia, Tennessee, A&M versus Notre Dame, USF, Miami, Colorado, Houston, and Duke, Tulane are the games we're picking in college football. We also pick 6 games in the NFL, and we'll talk about all the news and the latest and greatest things going on there as well. It's Thursday night on the Sports Stove Football Show, available wherever you get your podcasts, also available on the Belly Up Sports YouTube channel and the Belly Up socials live Thursday night. Follow me on social media at Sports Stove is where you can follow my thoughts and opinions. I will always bust on the Bears because, well, the Bears still suck. And so we'll continue to talk about that, of course, on socials as well. All right, that's it for tonight's episode of the Belly Up Fantasy Live Football Show. Thank you to our sponsors, RotoBot AI. Remember, download RotoBot AI, use the promo code BELLYUP. You're going to get a free week of access to the great platform of RotoBot AI. Thanks to Brian. Thanks to Kevin. Check out their stuff on bellyupsports.com and the shows that they appear on as well. We'll see you next week to talk about how great all of our opinions were again this week. And we'll move on from there. Have a great rest of your week, folks.